Hello students, today I'll introduce you to a 13-year-old Jew girl, Anne Frank, through the lesson from the diary of Anne Frank in first flight of class 10. Anne Frank is famous for her diary which she wrote during the Second World War. It is the most widely read diary of the Holocaust, and Anne is probably the best known of the Holocaust victims. Her diary provides a vivid and poignant glimpse into the world of a young Jewish girl living in Nazi-occupied Holland. Anne wrote this diary while in hiding with her family from the Nazis in an Amsterdam warehouse. Dear children, let me give you a brief background before we come to the extract prescribed. Anne's full name was Anneliese Marie Frank. She was born on 12 June 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany. She was the second daughter of Otto and Edith Frank. Her sister Margot was 3 years older than her. When Hitler came into power, the Frank family moved from Frankfurt to Holland in 1933, but soon that too was under the Nazi power. During this period, Jews had to face a lot of restrictions imposed by Hitler. They faced curfews, were not allowed to own businesses. They were even forced to wear yellow stars to segregate them. The children had to study in Jewish schools. Many Jews were even sent to labor and concentration camps. All this made their lives miserable and difficult. In July 1942, Margot, Anne's sister, received a call for deportation, supposedly to a forced labor camp. This made the family go into hiding in the backroom office and warehouse of Otto Frank's office, known as the Secret Annexe, with 4 other families. While in hiding, they were helped and supported by some loyal Dutch friends who brought them food, etc. The Franks were here for roughly 2 years. Anne's last diary entry was made on 1st August 1944, 3 days after which the Annexe was discovered and its inmates were arrested by Gestapo, the German police. The Frank family, along with so many other Jews, were moved from one concentration camp to another. Edith, the mother, passed away in January 1945 while in transit. Both Anne and Margot passed away in March in the same year due to typhus epidemic. Otto Frank, Anne's father, was the only survivor from the family. Friends who had searched the secret annexe and found Anne's diary handed it to Otto. Otto, realizing it to be a unique record, got it published under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. It was during such times that Anne, on her 13th birthday, sometime before they went into hiding, got an autographed book with a small lock which she decided to use as a diary. Anne started each diary entry with "Dear Kitty," and what followed was an incredibly candid and eloquent account of her life in confinement. It expresses her fear, boredom, confusion at the situation she found herself in. It also gives an insight into what it was like to live under such extreme circumstances. Coming to the extract in our book, Dear children, Anne initially had mixed emotions about writing a diary. On one side, she feels that who would be interested in reading the thoughts of a 13-year-old, and on the other, she feels that she needs to get things off her chest, as she puts it, and a diary would be the best way to do so. She also felt that since she had no friend, a real friend, a close friend, in whom she could confide all, so her diary would be her friend. Anne first gives a brief description about herself and her family. She tells about her grandmother too, and how much she misses her. She also talks about her sixth form teacher, Mrs. Cuperus, with whom she shared a very close bond. Her diary entry of 20th June 1942 reveals her as a normal, happy-go-lucky teenager with lots of friends. She describes in that how their class was awaiting their results and how apprehensive they all were about it. Anne herself was confident about all her subjects except maths. She gets along well with her teachers. Mr. Keesing, the maths teacher, is slightly annoyed with Anne as she talked too much. He even assigned an extra homework for her, an essay on a chatterbox, and wrote a convincing essay claiming that talking was a student's trait and she would try her best to keep it under control. But she could not ensure it, as it was an inherited trait from her mother, who talked as much, if not more. Mr. Keesing enjoyed the argument, but when Anne continued to talk, she was further asked to write again on an incorrigible chatterbox, and then again on quack quack, said Mistress Chatterbox, and writes out the punishments, making use of her wit, which is appreciated and enjoyed by all, including Mr. Keesing. Though Anne talks about a number of people, but prominently we are able to observe Anne and Mr. Keesing. Anne comes out as an energetic teenager who is loving, affectionate, and full of life. She is witty and has an aptitude for writing. She is very expressive and matured in her thinking. Mr. Keesing seems to be a strict teacher, but still a lovable and interesting character. He is a warm-hearted person. Though he punishes Anne, but is good at heart, he has a sense of humor and enjoys Anne's witty compositions. The message which we get through the extract is that a diary can make up for the absence of a sincere and dependable friend. It has more tolerance and patience than people in general. Mr. Keesing's character conveys that though the teachers should discipline their students but not suppress them, they should be allowed to retain their individuality. Children, I hope that you enjoyed listening about the story of this inspiring, brave girl. I'm sure that you will not only read the extract but would want to read the whole book. So, happy reading to all of you. Thank you.